As a young doctor fresh out of residency, Al Palmer was determined to prove myself in the unforgiving halls of St. Vincent's Hospital. The pressure was suffocating. Every decision felt like it could make or break my career. But nothing could have prepared me for the storm that was John Ma Soko and his father. From the moment they stepped into the hospital, chaos seemed to follow them like a shadow. John, fiercely protective of his father's beliefs, clashed with our medical team at every turn. He wasn't just skeptical, he was militant in his distrust of modern medicine, accusing us of trying to poison his father with our treatments. And then there was Mr. Soko himself, an elderly man from a remote village in Africa, who looked at us doctors in our white coats as if we were harbingers of death. His eyes would widen in sheer panic whenever one of us approached him, his frail body trembling under the weight of fear. It became clear that this wasn't just another case, it was a battleground where science met superstition, and lives hung precariously in the balance. The diagnosis hit us like a freight train. Dr. Gibson's voice was unusually grave as he delivered the news. Mr. Soko has a malignant tumor in his stomach, and it's growing rapidly. If we don't act soon, he could be gone within weeks. The words hung heavy in the air, suffocating me with their weight. As I stood there, gripping the edge of the examination table for support, my mind raced with worst-case scenarios. This wasn't just another patient, this was a ticking time bomb. But what made it infinitely worse was the family's refusal to cooperate. John Ma Soko crossed his arms defiantly when we presented the treatment options. "No surgery," he snapped, his voice cutting through the sterile silence of the consultation room. "He doesn't trust your medicine. He believes this is spiritual, not physical." Every attempt to reason with them felt like trying to douse a wildfire with a cup of water. "Do you understand how dangerous this is?" I pleaded, my voice rising involuntarily. "Your father's condition is deteriorating by the day. We're talking about his life here." But John wouldn't budge. His eyes burned with conviction as he shot back. "And do you understand what it means to disrespect the spirits? If you cut him open, you'll unleash something far worse than any tumor." The tension between us crackled like live wires. My palms were slick with sweat, not from fear of failure, but from the sheer frustration of being powerless to save someone who desperately needed help. To make matters worse, Mr. Soko himself seemed resigned to his fate. When I tried to explain the urgency of the situation, his trembling hands clutched at some talisman around his neck, muttering prayers under his breath. It was as if he had already accepted death's embrace. Each time I approached him, his wide, panicked eyes followed me like a cornered animal's. The man was terrified, not of dying, but of us. And yet, every second we wasted arguing brought him closer to catastrophe. Dr. Gibson pulled me aside later that evening, his expression grim. "We can't force them, Al," he said quietly, though his clenched jaw betrayed his frustration. "But if they don't sign the consent form soon, we'll lose him. And then what? Do we stand by while superstition sentences a man to death?" Those words echoed in my mind long after he left. Outside the hospital window, storm clouds gathered, mirroring the turmoil inside. Time was running out, for Mr. Soko, for us, and for whatever fragile hope remained. The tension between us reached a boiling point late one night when the unthinkable almost happened. I was making my final rounds, the fluorescent lights casting long shadows in the deserted hallway, when I noticed an unusual commotion near Mr. Soko's room. My heart sank as I approached and saw John hastily packing his father's belongings into a duffel bag. "What are you doing?" I demanded, my voice sharp with alarm. John didn't even glance at me. "We're leaving," he said coldly. "You people can't help him. We need to get back home where the spirits can heal him." Panic surged through me. "You can't just take him out of here?" I exclaimed. "His condition is critical. He could die on the way." But John wasn't listening. His face hardened into a mask of defiance, and he began wheeling the gurney toward the elevator. I immediately called security, but by the time they arrived, chaos had erupted. John shouted something in his native tongue, his voice echoing through the corridor like a war cry. When two guards tried to block their path, he shoved one of them aside, nearly knocking over a tray of medical instruments. The sound of clattering metal pierced the air, heightening the sense of disorder. A nurse rushed forward, pleading with John to reconsider, but he only grew angrier. "Don't touch him," he roared, standing protectively in front of his frail father. For a moment, it felt like we were no longer in a hospital but on some chaotic battlefield, each side fighting for what they believed was right. The altercation escalated until Dr. Gibson finally arrived, his authoritative presence momentarily diffusing the situation. "Enough," he bellowed, his voice cutting through the noise like a knife. Everyone froze. But even then, John refused to back down. "If you try to stop us again," he warned, his eyes blazing with fury, "you'll regret it." The threat hung heavy in the air, sending chills down my spine. It wasn't just defiance, it was desperation. They truly believed that modern medicine was failing them, and nothing could sway their faith in traditional methods. After they left, the hospital administration convened an emergency meeting. The mood in the room was grim. Legal action was discussed. Letting them leave without proper care felt like negligence. But deep down, I knew the real issue wasn't legal. It was cultural. How could we bridge such a vast divide? As I sat there, replaying the night's events in my mind, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were running out of time. Not just for Mr. Amioka, Soko, but for any hope of reconciliation between science and spirituality. It was well past midnight when the chaos erupted. I had just finished reviewing Mr. Soko's case file, my mind racing with unanswered questions about his inexplicable condition, when a deafening commotion shattered the quiet of the hospital floor. At first, I thought it was another emergency, until I heard chanting. Deep, rhythmic incantations echoed through the corridor, growing louder by the second. My heart sank as I rushed out of the office and saw him. The shaman, draped in colorful robes, his face painted with intricate patterns that seemed to glow under the fluorescent lights. He moved like a shadow, his presence both commanding and unsettling. Behind him trailed John, who looked equal parts relieved and defiant. "What is going on here?" Dr. Gibson barked, storming into the hallway with a mix of bewilderment and fury. But before anyone could intervene, the shaman entered Mr. Soko's room without hesitation. Nurses scrambled to follow, their protest drowned out by the man's unyielding chants. "You cannot interrupt this ritual," John shouted, blocking the doorway while clutching a talisman around his neck. The tension was unbearable, a powder keg waiting to explode. For a moment, it felt like time froze. All eyes were fixed on the bizarre spectacle unfolding before us. Then came the next shock. When the nurses finally managed to enter the room after the shaman left, they found it empty. Mr. Soko was gone. Panic surged through the hospital staff as we frantically searched every corner. Security footage revealed nothing but static during the exact time frame of the shaman's visit. It was as if he had spirited Mr. Soko away. Or worse, something supernatural had occurred. Every explanation sounded more absurd than the last. And then, just when despair threatened to consume us, The lab results arrived. My hands trembled as I read them. The tumor, the massive malignant growth we'd been so certain would claim Mr. Soko's life, was simply gone, vanished without a trace. This can't be real, I muttered, staring at the screen in disbelief. Dr. Gibson joined me, his expression mirroring my own confusion. How does a tumor the size of a fist disappear overnight? He demanded, slamming the report onto the counter. We pored over the data again and again, searching for errors, but everything checked out. It defied logic, science, everything we stood for. But the relief was short-lived. As we grappled with these revelations, an orderly burst into the lab, breathless. "We found him," he gasped. "He's back in his bed, but something's wrong." Rushing to the scene, we discovered Mr. Soko unconscious, his frail body racked with spasms. His vitals were erratic, and beads of sweat dotted his forehead. Whatever had happened during the shaman's visit wasn't over. It had only begun. The operating room was a symphony of tension and urgency. Mr. Soko's frail body lay on the table, his vitals flickering like a candle in the wind. The decision to perform emergency surgery had been made after Dr. Gibson delivered the devastating diagnosis. A massive tapeworm, not a tumor, had been ravaging his insides for years. But this wasn't just any parasite. It was an infestation. As the surgeons made the first incision, they uncovered something that left even the most seasoned among them stunned. Hundreds of eggs, tiny, glistening capsules of destruction, were embedded throughout his abdominal cavity. It was as if his body had become a breeding ground for death itself. My hands trembled as I relayed the news to John, who stood outside the OR, his face pale with dread. "It's worse than we thought," I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. "His immune system is completely compromised. If we don't act fast, he won't make it." But fate seemed determined to test us further. Midway through the procedure, chaos erupted when Mr. Soko suffered a severe allergic reaction to the anesthesia. His heart rate plummeted, alarms blared, and the surgical team scrambled to stabilize him. "We're losing him," one of the nurses shouted, her voice cracking under the weight of panic. Dr. Gibson barked orders, his calm demeanor masking the storm raging beneath the surface. Every second felt like an eternity as we fought to bring him back from the brink. For a moment, I thought we'd failed. His pulse disappeared entirely, and the room fell silent except for the relentless beeping of the monitor flatlining. Time froze. All I could hear was the pounding of my own heartbeat. And then, against all odds, we managed to revive him. The relief was fleeting, however, because the battle was far from over. Extracting the tapeworm proved to be a Herculean task. Its length was staggering. It stretched nearly 2 feet, and its grip on Mr. Soko's intestines was so entrenched that removing it required painstaking precision. Each movement carried the risk of causing irreparable damage. Sweat dripped down the foreheads of the surgical team as they worked tirelessly, their instruments gleaming under the harsh lights. Finally, after what felt like hours, the parasite was extracted. It lay there on the tray, grotesque and writhing, a living testament to the horrors that had plagued Mr. Soko's body. When the surgery concluded, the exhaustion was palpable. We wheeled Mr. Soko into recovery, his fragile frame hooked up to countless machines monitoring every breath, every heartbeat. John rushed to his side, tears streaming down his face. "Is he going to be okay?" he asked, his voice trembling. I hesitated before answering, choosing my words carefully. "He survived the surgery, but the next 24 hours will be critical. His body has been through unimaginable trauma. As we waited for signs of improvement, guilt gnawed at me. Had we acted sooner, could we have prevented this nightmare? The realization that Mr. Soko's condition stemmed from years of self-treatment with soil, a practice rooted in cultural beliefs, only deepened the complexity of the case. This wasn't just about medicine. It was about understanding, compassion, and bridging divides between science and tradition. And yet, despite everything, hope lingered. Against all odds, Mr. Dioval, Soko clung to life, proving that even in the darkest moments, resilience can shine through. The aftermath of Mr. Soko's case left an indelible mark on St. Vincent's Hospital, a scar that would linger long after the patient had recovered. The near-legal battle between the hospital and the family weighed heavily on everyone involved. When John stormed into Dr. Gibson's office days later, his voice trembled with barely contained rage. "You almost killed him," he accused, slamming a folder onto the desk. Inside were documents prepared by their lawyer, an ominous warning that they were ready to sue if answers weren't provided. My stomach churned as I stood silently in the corner, watching the tension escalate. It wasn't just about accountability anymore. It was about trust shattered and lives hanging precariously in the balance. But the scrutiny didn't stop at the family's door. During an emergency meeting convened by the hospital administration, the air was thick with recriminations. "How could we miss something so glaring?" one senior physician demanded, her voice cutting through the tense silence like a blade. The room erupted into murmurs of frustration and disbelief. We had misdiagnosed a tapeworm infestation as cancer, a mistake so colossal it made us question our competence. Each word spoken during that meeting felt like a blow to my already bruised confidence. Dr. Gibson, usually unflappable, looked visibly shaken as he addressed the team. "This isn't just about Mr. Soko," he said gravely. "It's about every patient who walks through these doors trusting us to get it right." The repercussions rippled outward. A formal review of protocols was ordered, forcing every department to reevaluate how cultural beliefs intersected with medical practices. As part of this process, I found myself sitting across from John again, not as adversaries, but as reluctant collaborators. He still harbored resentment, evident in the way he avoided eye contact and clenched his fists under the table. "We never wanted any of this," he admitted quietly, gesturing toward the stack of legal papers. "But you have to understand, it felt like no one was listening." His words hit me like a punch to the gut. For all our expertise, we had failed to truly hear them, to bridge the gap between science and spirituality. In the weeks that followed, the hospital organized a series of workshops aimed at fostering better communication with patients from diverse backgrounds. These sessions were emotionally charged, filled with raw confessions from both sides. Nurses recounted feeling powerless when faced with resistant families, while community leaders shared stories of loved ones lost due to similar misunderstandings. One particular moment stood out. A local elder stood up and addressed the room. "Medicine saves lives," he said, his voice steady yet impassioned. "But compassion saves souls." Those words hung in the air, a reminder of the delicate balance we must strike. Looking back, the lessons learned were painful but invaluable. This case taught us humility, the kind that comes from realizing even the most advanced technology can falter without empathy. And though the shadow of litigation loomed large for a time, it ultimately served as a catalyst for change, pushing us to become not just better doctors, but better human beings. The days following the surgery were a blur of uncertainty and dread. Mr. Soko remained in a coma, his frail body tethered to machines that beeped and blinked incessantly, each sound a reminder of how close we had come to losing him. The ICU felt like a battlefield where every second counted, and every decision carried the weight of life or death. John barely left his father's bedside, his face etched with guilt and exhaustion. "I should have trusted you sooner," he confessed one night, his voice cracking under the strain of regret. "We thought we were protecting him by keeping him away from all this. But maybe we were wrong." I didn't know what to say. His words hung heavy in the air, filled with the kind of sorrow that no medical training could prepare me for. As the hours dragged on, hope flickered faintly, like a candle struggling against a storm. Dr. Gibson visited daily, his usual confidence replaced by an uncharacteristic solemnity. "We've done everything we can," he said during one particularly tense meeting. "Now it's up to him." Those words haunted me. Despite our best efforts, despite the groundbreaking discovery of the tapeworm and the painstaking surgery to remove it, there was still a chance we might lose Mr. Soko. Every time I looked at his unconscious form, I couldn't help but wonder if we'd failed him. Not just as doctors, but as people who hadn't been able to bridge the gap between science and belief fast enough. And then, on the 5th day, something miraculous happened. As dawn broke through the hospital windows, casting golden light over the sterile room, Mr. Soko stirred. His eyelids fluttered open, revealing eyes clouded with confusion but aleios, with the spark of consciousness. The relief that washed over us was indescribable. Nurses rushed to check his vitals, their faces lighting up with cautious optimism. John gripped my arms so tightly I thought he might leave bruises. "He's awake," he whispered, tears streaming down his face. "Thank you. Thank you for saving him." In the weeks that followed, Mr. Soko made slow but steady progress. Though weakened by the ordeal, his spirit remained unbroken. During one of my visits, he reached out to touch my hand, a gesture of gratitude that spoke volumes. Through John's translation, he expressed remorse for not trusting us earlier and promised to seek proper medical care in the future. Some people leave scars, others leave lessons. Burn and reborn stories that break you, then rebuild you.